Let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with it for a moment before you answer. Why is it that some 80-year-olds still climb their own stairs, still carry their own groceries, still laugh with their grandchildren on a Sunday afternoon, while others, some as young as 65, quietly begin to give those things up? Same country, same decade, sometimes even the same street, and yet two entirely different lives. I have spent more than 20 years walking beside older adults in their kitchens, in their gardens, in hospital waiting rooms, and on their front porches at dusk. And that single question has followed me everywhere. Why do some of us hold on to our independence with both hands, while others watch it slip away, one small surrender at a time? Tonight, I want to answer that question with you. Not with fear, not with a lecture, but like an old friend sitting across the table from you, pouring a second cup of tea, saying, "Come, let us look at this together." Because what I have learned, and what the researchers at Harvard Medical School and the National Institute on Aging keep quietly confirming, will surprise you. The answer is not what most people think. It is not luck. It is not genetics. It is not money. It is something far gentler, far more within your reach than you have been led to believe. Stay with me. By the end of this evening, you will have 9 quiet answers. And the 9th one, the deepest layer of this question, I believe will change the way you look at every morning you have left. So let us begin where every honest investigation begins, with the first most obvious layer, the first layer. Why do some bodies simply keep moving? I once knew a woman named Margaret, 78 years old, a retired schoolteacher from Asheville, North Carolina. Every morning before the sun had fully lifted itself over the Blue Ridge Mountains, Margaret walked to her mailbox at the end of a long gravel drive. It was not far, perhaps 200 steps, but she walked it every single day in every season, for more than 40 years, in slippers when it was warm, in her late husband's old wool coat when it was cold. Her doctor once asked her what her secret was. She laughed and she said, "I just never stopped." That is the first layer of our answer. Movement. Not exercise, not the gym, not anything that requires special clothing or a monthly fee, but simple, daily, unhurried movement. Researchers at the Mayo Clinic have observed for years now that older adults who move gently but consistently, even just 20 to 30 minutes a day, retain their balance, their bone density, and their independence far longer than those who do not. But here is what many of us were never told. It is not the intensity that matters most after 65. It is the frequency. A short walk every day does more for your legs, your heart, and your mind than a long walk once a week. The body, at our age, responds to rhythm more than to force. And I know some of you are listening to me right now with a knee that aches, or a back that catches when you stand up too quickly, or a hip that has not been the same since that fall 3 winters ago. And you are wondering if this even applies to you anymore. My friend, it does. Movement does not have to mean walking. It can mean standing up from your chair 10 times while the kettle boils. It can mean rolling your ankles in slow circles while you watch the evening news. It can mean walking from the couch to the window and back again 3 times. Just to feel your feet remember the floor. The body was built to move until the very last day. And it will if you let it. But that still didn't explain everything. Because I have known people who walked every day and still lost their independence far too early. So I kept asking the second layer, what are we actually putting into these bodies? Have you noticed how food advice has become so complicated in the last 20 years? One decade eggs are the enemy. The next decade they are the hero. Butter is bad. Butter is good. Coffee will kill you. Coffee will save you. It is exhausting, isn't it? And I think for many older adults that exhaustion has led to a quiet giving up. A shrug. Well, I'll just eat what I eat. But here is the second layer of our answer. And it is far simpler than the magazines want you to believe. The older adults I have watched thrive into their 80s and 90s tend to eat in a way our grandmothers would have recognized. Real food. Food that's spoiled if you left it on the counter too long. Vegetables that came from the earth, fish when they could get it, beans, whole grains, a little meat, not a lot, olive oil rather than the strange bottled dressings, and water, plain, ordinary water throughout the day. The researchers at Johns Hopkins have observed that older adults who follow this kind of pattern, sometimes called a Mediterranean rhythm, show measurably slower cognitive decline and stronger cardiovascular health well into their later decades. But you do not need to call it Mediterranean. You can simply call it what my grandmother called it, eating like a person who intends to live. And here is where hope enters. It is never too late to change how you eat. The body, even at 70, even at 80, responds to good nourishment within weeks, Not years, weeks. Blood pressure softens. Energy returns. The fog begins to lift from the corners of the mind. I have watched it happen more times than I can count, but that still didn't explain everything. Because I have known people who ate beautifully, moved gently, and still lost their spark. So I kept asking the third layer, what is happening while we sleep? There is a myth that I want to untell right now, gently. The myth that older adults need less sleep. That somehow, once you cross 65 or 6 hours is enough, and if you wake at 3 in the morning staring at the ceiling, well, that is just what old age is. My friend, that is not true. Researchers at Cleveland Clinic have observed that the sleeping brain of a 70-year-old still needs, on average, 7 to 8 hours of rest, the same as a 40-year-old. What changes is not the need. What changes is the ability to reach the deep stages of sleep where the brain washes itself, where memories consolidate, where the body repairs. And this, I believe, is one of the quietest thieves of independence in later life. Not because sleep loss itself is dramatic, but because it accumulates. Poor sleep, night after night, dulls the reflexes that keep you from falling. It fogs the memory that keeps you sharp at the grocery store. It softens the mood that keeps you engaged with the people you love. So what can we do? The answer is not a pill. The answer is what many doctors quietly call sleep hygiene, and I call the evening rhythm. A consistent bedtime, a dim room, no bright screens in the last hour, a warm, not hot bath, a cup of chamomile if it agrees with you, and the willingness to treat your rest as sacred, not as something you fit in after everything else is done. I once knew a gentleman named Walter, 81, a retired railway inspector from Toledo, Ohio. He told me that the year he began going to bed at the same time every night, 10 o'clock, no exceptions, was the year his balance returned. He had not connected the two before, but his body had the fourth layer, who is still in the room with us. Now, this one I want you to hear carefully, because it is the layer most often overlooked. Loneliness, not solitude, which can be beautiful, but loneliness, the ache of being unseen, unheard, and unnecessary, is, according to the National Institute on Aging, as damaging to the aging body as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Sit with that for a moment, and yet we so rarely talk about it. We tell older adults to eat well and exercise, and we forget to ask them if anyone called them this week, if anyone said their name out loud, if anyone touched their shoulder or laughed at their joke. But here is the hope, and it is enormous. Connection at any age restores the body in measurable ways. Blood pressure lowers, inflammation decreases, the immune system strengthens, the memory sharpens. All from something as simple as a phone call, a weekly card game, a Tuesday morning coffee with a neighbor. If this is resonating with you tonight, if any of this is landing softly on a place inside you that has been waiting to be spoken to, I would love it if you would type the word hope in the comments below. Just that one word. It helps me know who I am sitting with tonight, and it reminds every other person watching that they are not alone in this room either. Now, let us keep going. Because we are only halfway to the deepest answer, the fifth layer. What is the mind still doing? There is another myth I want to untell. The myth that memory loss is inevitable. That once you begin misplacing your reading glasses, the road ahead is fixed. It is not. The brain, even in the 8th and 9th decades of life, is capable of what researchers call neuroplasticity, the growing of new connections, new pathways, new understandings. The brain does not retire when you do, but it does need work. Not the crossword puzzle kind of work alone, something deeper. The older adults I have watched stay sharp into their late years tend to keep learning. Not academic learning necessarily, but new things, a new recipe, a new bird species in the backyard, a new route home from church, a new song on the old piano, a new grandchild's name and all their small preferences. The brain treats novelty like water in a dry season. It reaches for it and it grows. I once knew a woman named Rosa, 74, a retired seamstress from Santa Fe, New Mexico. She began learning Italian at 71, not because she planned to travel, but because she loved the sound of it. Her daughter told me quietly that Rosa's memory sharpened noticeably in the 2 years that followed. Not the language itself, but the reaching. That was the medicine, the sixth layer. What is the body being asked to carry? Here we come to something practical, and it matters more than most people realize. Balance, strength, the quiet ability to catch yourself when the rug bunches under your foot, or to rise from a chair without pushing off with both hands. Falling, according to the National Institute on Aging, is one of the leading reasons older adults lose their independence. Not because the fall itself is always catastrophic, but because the fear of falling changes everything. It shrinks the world. It keeps you off the stairs, off the garden path, off the sidewalks you once walked without thinking. But here is the hope again. Balance can be practiced at any age. Standing on one foot while you brush your teeth. Walking heel to toe down the hallway. Gentle chair yoga in the morning light. Tai Chi, if it interests you. Researchers at Harvard have observed remarkable benefits from even 10 minutes a day of these slow, deliberate movements. Strength, too, can be rebuilt. I have seen women in their 80s who had not lifted anything heavier than a teacup in years regain the strength to carry their own laundry basket within 3 months of gentle, patient practice. The body remembers. It always remembers the seventh layer. What are we drinking? This one is so simple that most people dismiss it. But I have watched it change lives. Water. As we age, something quiet happens. The signal that tells us we are thirsty grows fainter. And so we drink less, often without realizing it. And dehydration in older adults, according to Mayo Clinic observations, can look like almost anything: confusion, fatigue, dizziness, headaches, even symptoms that mimic memory loss. I have known older adults who were sent to the emergency room believing they were having a stroke, and the truth was simpler and gentler. They had not drunk a full glass of water in 3 days. The remedy is small. A glass of water beside the bed. A glass with breakfast. A glass at lunch. A glass in the afternoon. A glass with dinner. Herbal tea counts. Broth counts. Watery fruits count. It does not have to be complicated. It only has to be consistent. The 8th layer. What still gives us a reason? Now we are drawing close to the deepest layer. But before we arrive, we must pass through this one: purpose. The researchers at Harvard and Johns Hopkins have observed something remarkable. Older adults who report having a clear sense of purpose, however small, tend to live longer, stay sharper, and remain independent far longer than those who do not. Purpose does not have to be grand. It does not have to be a mission or a legacy or a movement. It can be tending tomatoes. It can be writing letters to a grandchild. It can be feeding the neighborhood cats every morning. It can be showing up at church on Wednesdays because someone counts on you being there. Purpose is what gets you out of the chair. And getting out of the chair, my friend, is half the battle of aging well. I have watched the light return to the eyes of an 85-year-old man who thought his usefulness had ended, simply because someone asked him to teach a grandson how to whittle. The knife in his hand, the boy at his knee, the small pile of shavings at his feet, that was medicine no pharmacy could bottle. And now the 9th layer, the deepest one, the one this whole question has been circling. Are you ready? Take a breath with me. The single quality I have watched most consistently in the older adults who kept their independence longest, who stayed sharp and mobile and connected into their late 80s and beyond, is not on any medical chart. It is not measurable in a blood test. It is not in the food, though the food matters. It is not in the exercise, though the exercise matters. It is this: they kept believing they still had time. They did not treat their lives as finished. They did not treat each new year as a smaller room. They woke up every morning and quietly, without announcing it to anyone, they believed there was still something ahead of them worth reaching for. A new book to read, a new season in the garden, a new great-grandchild, a new sunrise they had not yet seen, a friend they had not yet forgiven, a recipe they had not yet perfected. This is the deepest answer to our question. Why do some 80-year-olds still climb their own stairs? Because in their hearts they have not yet finished climbing. Everything else, the walking, the eating, the sleeping, the connecting, the learning, the balancing, the drinking, the purpose, flows from this one quiet belief: that the story is not over, that you are still here and still becoming. And if you have felt lately that maybe your story was winding down, I want you to hear me clearly, my friend. It is not. Not tonight. Not while you are still breathing. Not while you are still listening to a voice like mine on a quiet evening, wondering if there might be more. There is more. So what did the question finally answer? Let me leave you with 5 small steps, not commands, only invitations, drawn from everything we have uncovered together tonight. First, move a little every day. Not much, not hard, just consistently. Let your body know you are still using it. Second, eat like someone who intends to live. Real food, water throughout the day, nothing complicated, nothing extreme. Just steady, honest nourishment. Third, protect your sleep as if it were sacred, because it is. A consistent bedtime, a dim room, a quiet hour before rest. Fourth, reach for one person this week. A phone call, a card, a visit, a shared cup of coffee. Loneliness is a thief, but it is a thief that leaves quickly the moment connection walks in. And fifth, this is the one I want you to hold closest. Keep believing there is time. Learn one small new thing, set one small new intention, water one small new hope. Because independence in the end is not just the ability to walk your own stairs, it is the willingness to believe those stairs still lead somewhere worth going. My dear friend, it is never too late. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not next year. As long as there is breath in you, there is possibility ahead of you. I have seen it too many times to doubt it anymore. If this evening has meant something to you, would you gently tap the like button and consider subscribing so I can sit with you again on another quiet night like this one? And ring the little bell, if you would, so you do not miss the next conversation. And in the comments below, I would love it if you left just one word, still, to tell me and everyone else watching that your story is still being written. Well tonight. Drink your water. Take your walk tomorrow. And remember, you are still here, and that means you are still becoming. Peace be with you, my friend. Sleep gently.